Luke had lived alone in the valley for almost 2 years, and he enjoyed every quiet moment of it. His cabin, made of old pine logs and a roof patched with his own hands, stood near a line of tall cedar trees. Every morning he woke before sunrise, tended to his horse, fixed whatever needed fixing, and spent the rest of the day working on small ranch tasks. Life was simple, and that was exactly how he liked it. He did not look for trouble. He did not look for excitement. On that particular afternoon, the sky was clear, the wind gentle, and Luke was sitting on a wooden stool outside his cabin. He was repairing a cracked saddle strap, humming quietly to himself. Everything felt normal until the wind carried something unusual. A sound, faint, distant, but too steady to be an animal. He paused, lifted his head, and listened carefully. At first he thought it was thunder rolling from far away, but then the rhythm became clearer. Hooves. Many hooves. More than a herd. More than a group. It sounded like an army. Luke stood up slowly. Something inside him tightened. Not fear exactly, but a sharp alertness that made every sense awake. He stepped a few paces forward and looked toward the dusty horizon where the valley opened. For a moment, there was nothing. Only the warm light of the lowering sun. But then, as if the earth itself moved, dark shapes began appearing. Horsemen, row after row, emerging from behind the distant rocks. Luke did not move. He only narrowed his eyes as the shapes grew clearer. These were warriors. Apache warriors. And not a small scouting group. There were dozens at first, then dozens more, until the line of riders stretched across the valley like a living wall. They rode in silence, organized, calm, and serious. Their presence filled the space like a storm without noise. Luke had seen Apache riders before, but never like this. He counted quickly in his mind, 50, then 100, then easily more than 200 riders. They moved like water, flowing around him, spreading across the valley floor. In moments, his cabin was no longer alone. The warriors surrounded it in a perfect circle, each rider stopping at equal distance, forming a silent ring that trapped him between their horses and spear points. He felt his breath tighten. Not panic, just the awareness that one wrong move could cause everything to go wrong. But Luke was not a man who acted without thinking. He slowly lifted his hands slightly to show he held no weapon, though he did not raise them high like a man surrendering. He only made it clear he meant no harm. The Apache riders watched him, their faces firm and unreadable. None spoke. None shifted in their saddles. They simply observed him, as though deciding what kind of man he was. After several long seconds, the circle opened from one side. A path formed as riders moved aside, creating space for two new figures to come forward. One was older, riding with dignity, wearing markings of leadership. This was clearly the Chief Nahiko, known across the lands not just for strength, but for wisdom and fairness. Luke recognized him, even from a distance. Stories about the chief reached far and wide. But it was the person riding behind him who caught Luke's attention with unexpected force. It was a young woman, riding with unmatched grace. Her clothes were decorated with careful patterns, her hair woven with a few small feathers, and her presence felt peaceful in the middle of a tense scene. Her name, whispered among traders and travelers, was Ayana, the chief's daughter, known for her gentle spirit and sharp mind. Many said she saw things others could not. Many said she carried kindness like other people carried weapons. As she rode forward, her calm eyes locked onto Luke. He expected anger, suspicion, maybe even fear, but her gaze held none of that. Instead, her expression was soft, curious, almost warm. She studied him slowly, as if trying to read his heart rather than his appearance. Her eyes had a quiet shine that made Luke feel something he had not felt in a long while, a sense of being understood, even before speaking. For a moment, Luke forgot about the 200 warriors surrounding him. He forgot about the tension in the air. He forgot about the danger of the moment. All he noticed was her eyes, how gentle they were, how steady, how they held something close to kindness. It startled him. He did not expect such a look from the daughter of a great chief, especially in a moment like this. The chief stopped his horse only a few steps away from Luke. The air grew still. Even the riders behind him seemed to breathe quietly, waiting for the first spoken word. Yet before the chief began to speak, Ayanna shifted slightly on her horse. Her gaze still locked onto Luke. Something unspoken passed between them. A silent recognition. A spark that neither expected. Luke swallowed slowly, not out of fear, but because he felt suddenly aware of his own posture, his own breath, his own heartbeat. It was strange how the look of one woman could affect him more than the circle of 200 warriors. The chief finally spoke, his voice deep and steady. He did not shout. He did not threaten. He spoke with a calm authority that filled the space. Luke answered carefully, respectful, but steady. He explained he had lived here peacefully, that he did not cause trouble, that he did not interfere with Apache lands. His voice did not shake. He was not a man who panicked easily. While the chief listened, Ayanna's gaze never left Luke. She seemed to evaluate not his words, but his honesty. Her eyes followed the movement of his hands, the small shifts in his expression, the tone of his voice, and whatever she saw seemed to soften her features even more. Luke noticed the change and felt warmth spreading through him, strange and unexpected. In the middle of a tense situation, her soft gaze grounded him more than anything else. The chief spoke again, telling Luke they were searching for something important. Luke listened carefully, waiting for more clarification. But during the explanation, he couldn't help but feel the weight of Ayanna's gentle attention. It felt as if she believed he was innocent, even before the chief finished speaking. Even before Luke understood fully why they had come. When the chief paused, Ayanna nudged her horse forward slightly and spoke for the first time. Her voice was soft, yet carried through the still air. It was the kind of voice that made even the horses seem to settle. Luke listened carefully, absorbing every word. She did not accuse him. She did not question him harshly. Instead, she spoke as if she wanted to understand him, not judge him. Her tone carried respect, and something else, something Luke could not name but felt deep inside. For a moment, the entire valley felt silent. 200 warriors watched the exchange, but the space between Luke and Ayanna felt like its own world. Her expression softened even further, almost like she trusted him, or at least believed he deserved fairness. Luke felt something shift inside him, a strange new feeling that warmed his chest. She did not look at him like a stranger. She looked at him like someone she recognized. Luke never believed that a single look could change the air around him. But right then, with Ayanna's eyes holding his, the danger seemed to fade into the background. He felt seen, not judged, and she seemed to feel the same. In that moment, before any decisions were made, before the search began, before the truth was discussed, a quiet bond formed, tiny, fragile, but real. The cowboy stood alone. The cabin stood behind him. 200 Apache warriors surrounded him. But the only thing he truly noticed was the chief's daughter looking at him with a calm, gentle, almost loving expression. An expression that promised the day was about to take a very unexpected turn. Chief Nahiko sat tall on his horse as the circle of warriors stayed silent. Luke waited patiently, keeping his hands relaxed at his sides. Even though he stood alone in the middle of 200 Apache riders, fear did not control him. He knew that panic could make things worse, and he trusted that calmness would help him understand why they had surrounded his small cabin. The chief finally explained the reason for their arrival. Earlier that morning, a rare and precious tribal horse, a white stallion only seen once every few generations, had gone missing. It was not an ordinary horse. It was a symbol of strength, a living treasure, and many in the tribe believed it carried good fortune. The stallion had wandered away during the night, leaving the tribe in great worry. Tracks led south, and scouts followed them until they reached the valley where Luke lived. That was why the warriors had come, not to attack, not to threaten, but to search for answers. Luke listened carefully. He nodded slowly when the chief paused, then spoke with calm honesty. He told them he had indeed seen the stallion earlier that morning. The animal had gotten itself trapped in a broken section of an old fence near the creek. Luke had gently freed it, made sure it was not injured, and watched it run off toward open land again. He described everything in detail, speaking clearly so there would be no misunderstanding. The warriors exchanged glances. Some looked doubtful, others thoughtful. But Ayanna's reaction was different. She leaned forward slightly on her horse and studied Luke's face, as if listening not only to his words, but to the intention behind them. Her eyes softened even more, and she nodded almost imperceptibly. It was clear she believed him. Luke noticed her trust immediately. It surprised him again how someone who barely knew him could look at him with such quiet confidence. Her gaze carried weight, and he could see that the warriors respected her opinions deeply. Chief Nahiko continued watching Luke, his face unreadable. After a long moment, he spoke again, saying that they would need proof and clarity. He asked Luke if he was willing to guide them to the place where he had seen the stallion earlier. Luke did not hesitate. He agreed immediately, understanding that proof was the only way to end the tension peacefully. Before the chief could say more, Ayanna gently guided her horse forward. She spoke softly, telling her father that this cowboy did not seem like someone who would lie. Her words were slow, measured, and filled with quiet certainty. The warriors listened closely. The trust in her voice affected the entire group. Ayanna was not only the chief's daughter, she was respected for her judgment and intuition. When she believed someone was honest, most people listened. Luke felt warmth at her support, though he did not show it openly. He simply bowed his head in a polite, grateful gesture. She smiled faintly, and in that brief moment, the valley seemed calmer. The chief agreed to Luke's offer. He commanded his riders to open the circle. The warriors moved with perfect coordination, creating a path through the center. Luke stepped toward his horse, mounted it, and led the way down the valley. 200 Apache warriors rode behind him, their hooves shaking the ground. The sound was deep, steady, powerful like thunder rolling slowly across the plain. Ayanna rode near the front, not far from Luke. Every now and then she glanced at him, studying his posture, his calmness, the way he handled his horse. Luke rode with quiet confidence, showing no fear, despite being surrounded by warriors. Ayanna noticed this and admired his steady nature. After a few minutes of silent riding, she spoke to him again. Her tone was soft, peaceful, and filled with curiosity. She asked how long he had lived in the valley. Luke answered simply, telling her about his quiet life, his daily tasks, and how he chose this place because he liked the calm world away from towns. Ayanna listened with interest. She told him that not many people chose a quiet life anymore. Most wanted excitement, money, or bigger towns. Luke answered that peace meant more to him than anything else. His voice was steady, and Ayanna smiled softly at his answer. She liked people who valued quiet strength and calm hearts. As they rode, she asked a few more questions, not too many, not too personal. She asked about his horse, his cabin, and his work. Luke responded politely each time, giving her honest answers. He found her questions gentle and respectful. She did not speak like someone trying to judge him. She spoke like someone trying to understand him. Some warriors riding nearby noticed the conversation. They exchanged small looks, but none interrupted. They respected Ayanna and her choices. And even if they did not show it, They saw something in Luke too, a calmness that matched Ayana's natural gentleness. The group finally reached the place near the creek, where Luke had first seen the stallion that morning. The broken fence still lay on the ground. Hoof marks were visible in the dirt. The grass was flattened in several spots, showing signs of struggle. The warriors dismounted and examined the area carefully. They checked the ground, the fence, and the tracks leading away. Everything matched Luke's story. Chief Nahiko walked slowly around the site, studying every detail. His face slowly relaxed. Luke watched quietly as the chief inspected the scene. Ayana approached Luke again, standing close enough that he could hear her soft breathing. She told him gently that she was glad he had helped the stallion. Luke shrugged modestly, saying it was the right thing to do. Ayana looked at him with warmth, like she admired the simplicity of his answer. He had not helped the stallion for reward or recognition. He had helped because it was needed. The chief finally spoke again, confirming that the tracks were genuine. Luke's honesty was clear now, and the tension among the warriors dissolved like mist in sunlight. Their posture relaxed. Their eyes softened. The danger that had hovered earlier faded naturally. But something else soon took its place: respect. Still, the day was not over. One scout rode back quickly to report fresh tracks heading deeper toward the rocky hills. The white stallion was still wandering somewhere nearby. It was not safe for the animal to stay loose. The chief ordered a continued search, and Luke offered to guide them further. The chief accepted. Ayana seemed pleased with Luke's willingness to help. They continued riding, following the new trail. Ayana kept near Luke again, naturally drawn to his calm presence. She asked how he had freed the stallion earlier. Luke explained gently, describing how he had spoken softly to the frightened animal and moved slowly so it would not panic. Ayana listened with admiration. She liked people who treated animals with respect. It showed a kindness that many men forgot to carry. As the sun lowered and shadows stretched longer, the search grew more urgent. Finally, after crossing a set of rocks, they found the white stallion again. This time it was stuck in thick brush, unable to pull itself free. The animal was scared but unharmed. Several warriors rushed forward, ready to use force, but Luke lifted a hand gently, asking them to give him a moment. The warriors paused. They trusted him now. At least enough to wait. Luke approached the horse slowly. He spoke softly, calming it with gentle words. Ayana watched with bright eyes, amazed at how naturally he handled the animal. He reached into the brush, loosened the tangled branches, and freed the stallion with patient movements. No harsh pulling, no fear, only kindness and confidence. When the horse finally stepped free, Ayana smiled in genuine appreciation. She thanked Luke softly, and the stallion seemed calmer near him than near anyone else. The chief nodded with approval. Luke's actions had proven much more than honesty. They had shown character. As the group prepared to return to the valley with the stallion, Luke felt Ayana's gaze again. This time it felt deeper, like gratitude mixed with admiration. Luke felt something warm rise inside him. He did not understand where it would lead, but he sensed that this day was changing the path of his life. Together they rode back toward the valley, the warriors no longer looking at Luke with suspicion. Instead, they watched him with new respect. And Ayana rode beside him, her quiet smile carrying a meaning he could not ignore. The day had begun with danger, tension, and uncertainty. But now something new had formed a connection between a cowboy and the chief's daughter. Soft as a whisper, yet strong enough to change both their worlds. The long line of riders moved slowly across the valley floor as the sun dropped lower behind the hills. The white stallion, now free from the thick brush, walked calmly between two Apache warriors. Luke rode slightly behind them, guiding the path when the ground became uneven. Ayana rode beside him again, keeping her pace gentle, as if she wanted every moment of the journey to last longer. The earlier tension had faded so completely that the valley now felt like a quiet, open land instead of a place where he had once been surrounded by 200 warriors. But even with the calmness settling over the group, the day was far from ordinary. Luke could feel something heavy and meaningful in the air. Something more than the simple return of a missing horse. Something had changed between him and Ayanna, though neither spoke of it directly. Her presence beside him felt natural, like she had known him longer than a few hours. She watched him with a quiet warmth that made his heart feel lighter, yet strangely full. They continued following the rocky path back toward the valley. Ayanna glanced at Luke every so often, not in a shy way, but in a thoughtful one, as though she was silently studying the kind of person he was. Luke tried not to stare, but each time her eyes met his, he felt something deep inside that he couldn't explain. It was gentle, strong, and completely unexpected. As they neared a small slope, the chief raised his hand, commanding the group to pause. He looked across the area carefully, making sure the terrain was safe. Luke noticed that even though the chief trusted him more now, the warriors still watched their surroundings carefully. They were responsible for their people, their chief, and especially Ayanna. Responsibility weighed heavily on them, but they carried it with discipline. When the group stopped, Luke stepped down from his horse to adjust the saddle strap again. Ayanna slid off her horse as well, walking a few steps toward him with a quiet smile. She asked softly if he needed help. Luke chuckled lightly and told her he could manage. But Ayanna didn't walk away. She stood near him, watching his hands move, as if fascinated by the ordinary details of his life. She asked him how he learned to work with animals so gently. Luke told her he had grown up on a ranch far from the valley, where his father taught him that animals had feelings just like people. If one spoke calmly to them, they listened. If one treated them with patience, they trusted. Ayanna listened closely, absorbing every word. She told him that in her tribe, kindness toward animals was a respected trait. That's why the stallion did not fear him earlier. Luke felt a warmth rise in his chest at her compliment. It had been a long time since someone spoke to him with such sincerity. The chief approached them quietly, observing the two for a moment before speaking. He thanked Luke again for his help, and Luke nodded respectfully. But the chief wasn't finished. He told Luke that restoring the tribe's treasured stallion was an act they would not forget. His voice carried pride, but also something measured, something thoughtful. As he spoke, Ayanna watched her father with patient eyes, understanding that he was choosing his words carefully. When the chief returned to speak with the warriors, Ayanna turned back to Luke and quietly asked if he often helped strangers this way. Luke shrugged modestly, saying he never thought of people as strangers. Anyone who needed help deserved it. That answer made Ayanna smile with such softness that Luke felt the moment settle in his heart. Soon the group continued their journey. The sun had dipped low, casting long shadows on the ground. The air turned cooler, making the scenery look almost golden. Luke felt the peace of the land settling around them, and Ayanna rode close enough that their horses sometimes brushed sides. She didn't pull away when that happened, and neither did he. They came upon another slope, and the chief slowed the group again. The stallion, though calm, still stepped carefully. Luke moved ahead, guiding the group around loose stones and uneven ground. The warriors watched him, not with suspicion now, but with silent respect. Even the chief observed him thoughtfully. Ayanna whispered that her father admired brave people, especially those who stayed calm in difficult moments. Luke smiled a little and told her he didn't feel especially brave, he just tried to stay steady. Ayanna replied that sometimes steady was better than brave. It was the kind of thing only someone with a deep heart would say, and Luke understood why many in her tribe looked up to her. When they reached a wide clearing, the white stallion suddenly lifted its head, ears twitching. It sensed the familiar scent of home. With a soft sound, it began walking faster, pulling gently at the rope guiding it. The warriors let it move ahead, watching it with relief. The chief's expression softened as he followed the horse with his eyes. Ayanna leaned slightly toward Luke, her voice calm. She told him that the stallion was more than a horse, it was a symbol of unity for the tribe. Losing it would have worried their leaders deeply. Luke nodded slowly, understanding why the search had been so urgent. But Ayanna also said something else. Something that made Luke's heartbeat shift. She told him that helping the stallion had shown more than responsibility. It had shown he cared for life, even when no one was watching. She said this quietly, as if it were a secret meant only for him. Luke didn't know how to respond. He felt something gentle yet powerful settle between them. He had never met someone who noticed the small pieces of kindness inside him. Ayanna seemed to see straight through the quiet walls he always carried. As they walked through the clearing, one of the warriors called out to the chief, pointing at new marks on the ground. They were signs that the stallion might have been chased earlier, though by what, none could tell. The chief examined the tracks with narrowed eyes. Luke stepped beside him, studying the marks as well. The chief nodded at Luke's presence, accepting his help now, without hesitation. Ayanna watched the two men quietly, noticing how naturally Luke blended into the group. His calm presence was something her tribe respected deeply. It was rare, even among their own people. When the chief finished examining the tracks, he turned to Luke and thanked him again. He said Luke's help restored more than a horse, it restored peace of mind to the tribe. Luke bowed his head, humbly. He didn't want praise. He only wanted fairness. Ayanna stood beside her father, but her eyes stayed on Luke. She didn't hide her admiration anymore. It was clear, warm, steady. Luke felt the weight of it, but in a good way. Like a warmth that settled gently in his chest. As the sun slipped behind the hills fully, the Apache warriors prepared torches. The soft glow illuminated their faces. Ayanna walked closer to Luke. Her steps, quiet. She told him that her people would remember his kindness for a long time. Luke looked at her, his voice softer than before. He told her that he didn't expect anything in return. He helped because it was right. Ayanna's eyes sparkled gently in the torchlight, and she whispered that she knew. The group began the final stretch of the journey back to the valley. Luke felt tired but peaceful. He rode between Ayanna and the stallion, feeling like he belonged in a place he had never imagined he would. As the valley came into view again, lit by the soft rise of the moon, Ayanna looked at Luke with a long, warm gaze, one that said she had made her own decision about who he was. And Luke realized something quietly, deeply, without needing words. This day had changed everything. Not because of the stallion, not because of the chief, not because of the warriors, but because of Ayanna. Night had fully settled over the valley by the time the Apache warriors returned with Luke and the white stallion. The sky was dark, but not silent. Stars shone like scattered lanterns, lighting the land in a soft, peaceful way. The moon hung above the hills, half bright, half shadowed, giving a calm silver glow to the ground. The air felt cooler now, carrying the gentle scent of juniper trees and distant campfires. Luke breathed in slowly, feeling both tired and strangely uplifted. The warriors formed a loose circle in the valley, letting their horses rest. A few moved forward to guide the stallion safely toward the group waiting in the center. The tribe members who had not joined the search stepped out of their tents to see the return of their treasured horse. Murmurs spread like a soft wave through the crowd. Relief, joy, pride. The chief's people were grateful, and their voices carried that gratitude through the cool night air. Luke watched quietly from the saddle. He was not a man who expected applause or reward. Just seeing the tribe calm and peaceful again was enough for him. But something else made the moment feel deeper. Ayanna riding beside him, her expression gentle and warm. She glanced his way as if reminding him that this night was special for more than one reason. When the chief dismounted and walked toward him, Luke stepped down from his horse. Ayanna followed, standing slightly behind her father, but close enough for her presence to be unmistakable. Chief Nahiko faced Luke with an expression that held both respect and gratitude. He spoke slowly, clearly, telling Luke that what he had done today would not be forgotten. The tribe valued honesty and kindness deeply. Luke had shown both, even when surrounded and outnumbered. It meant more than words could explain. Luke nodded humbly, saying he had only done what felt right. He never wanted credit or recognition. He simply wanted to help. The chief looked at him for a long moment, and something softened in his expression. It was rare for someone outside the tribe to earn trust so quickly. But Luke had managed it through actions, not speeches. As the chief stepped back, Ayanna moved forward. She stood in front of Luke, her face glowing softly in the moonlight. For a moment she didn't say anything, just looked at him with the same gentle warmth she had shown since the first moment she saw him. Her eyes held gratitude, admiration, and something deeper, something unspoken, but powerful. Luke felt his heartbeat slowly change, not in fear, not in confusion, but in a quiet realization that her presence had become important to him. Ayanna finally spoke, her voice soft like wind brushing across tall grass. She told him that the tribe was safe because of him. The horse was safe because of him. She was grateful, more than she could express. Luke listened carefully, unable to look away. Her words touched something deep inside him, something he rarely let anyone see. Before he could reply, one of the older warriors approached the chief with a suggestion. The tribe wanted to thank Luke properly. They wanted to offer him something: food, supplies, and a place to rest for the night. The valley was large, and it was safe to stay among them until sunrise. Luke agreed politely, though he didn't want to cause trouble. The chief assured him it was no trouble at all. It was hospitality, and hospitality was a sign of respect. Ayanna smiled softly when she heard that Luke would stay for the night. She guided him toward the central fire, where warm light danced on the ground and cast soft shadows around them. Several tribe members offered him cooked food and water. Luke accepted with quiet appreciation, sitting near the fire while Ayanna sat nearby with her friends. But even while speaking to others, she kept glancing his way, checking if he was comfortable. Luke ate slowly, taking in the sights around him. Children ran around the fire with laughter in their voices. Elders spoke in gentle, melodic tones. Warriors rested their horses and polished their saddles. The valley felt alive with community, a kind of togetherness Luke had never experienced in his many quiet months alone. Ayanna eventually walked toward him again, her steps quiet and graceful. She asked if he felt welcome here. Luke nodded, saying the valley felt peaceful. Ayanna smiled, saying she was glad. She sat beside him, close enough that he could feel the warmth of her presence. They talked softly about simple things: the land, the hills, the trees, and his quiet life alone. Ayanna listened with interest, fascinated by how he lived without noise or constant company. Luke, in turn, asked about her tribe, her daily life, and what she loved most about her people. She told him she loved their unity, their traditions, and their way of living in harmony with the land. She also told him that she admired people who didn't speak loudly, but carried strong hearts. Luke felt her words settle inside him. As they talked, the world around them seemed to fade. The fire crackled softly. The stars shimmered above, and the conversations of others became distant murmurs. Ayanna looked at Luke with a gaze that held meaning far beyond the short time they had known each other. After a while, the chief approached them again, but this time, his tone carried something different, something thoughtful. He told Luke that the tribe respected him, and that Ayanna spoke highly of his heart. Luke felt his chest warm at the mention of her name. The chief paused, studying Luke with the eyes of a leader and a father. Then he spoke words that were simple yet strong. He said that if Luke ever needed help, the tribe would stand with him. Luke did not know what to say. Such an offer was rare, precious. He bowed his head respectfully, understanding the weight behind those words. Ayanna stepped forward again, after her father left. She looked at Luke with a soft, lingering expression. She told him she believed they were meant to cross paths today. Luke felt a deep truth in her words. He didn't know how or why, but he felt it too. Something between them was natural, gentle, and strong like a thread woven quietly between two hearts. As the fire dimmed and the tribe settled for the night, the chief told Luke they would escort him safely back to his cabin at sunrise. The valley grew quieter, and the moon climbed higher, shining over the land with calm silver light. Luke stood near the edge of the camp, looking toward the distant hills. Ayanna walked beside him, stopping close enough that her shoulder nearly touched his. She looked at him with a long, warm gaze, the same gaze she had given him earlier when the warriors first surrounded his cabin. But now it was fuller, clearer, and filled with emotion she didn't try to hide. She told him gently that she hoped this would not be the last time they saw each other. Her voice was soft, but steady. Luke felt something deep inside, the same sense of a path shifting beneath his feet. He told her he hoped so too. Their words were quiet, but the meaning behind them was unmistakably strong. Before returning to her tent, Ayanna looked back once more. The moonlight touched her face, making her expression glow softly. She gave Luke a gentle smile, one that carried a promise, without speaking it. Luke stood still long after she walked away. Her presence lingered in the night like a warm echo. When the warriors escorted him back to his cabin at sunrise, Luke watched the tribe disappear over the hills. But the last person he saw was Ayanna looking back at him. Her expression as warm as the first moment she looked at him lovingly. Luke knew the valley would never feel the same again, not after meeting her. Not after the night filled with quiet connection. The cowboy had faced 200 warriors without fear, but it was Ayanna's gentle gaze that truly stayed with him. A memory strong enough to change the path of his life forever.